everybody, my name's Sam. I'm here to talk to you about the new series of Great British Sewing Bee, and this week we are on episode 5. I write a blog post about this as well over on my website, which is Frugalissima, and also I'm on Instagram as Frugalissima as well. So episode 5 was lingerie and sleepwear. So we saw them making basques, transformation of nightie and pyjamas, and in the final round there's two-piece sleepwear. So I'll start with the basques. So what I do in this series of reviews, I review the show and have a look at the patterns and fabrics that they could potentially have used. I can't always find everything that they use, but I have a good go, and then I look at what I've got as well, and set myself a little challenge to see if I can either replicate or make something similar to what the contestants do, using my own patterns and stash. I'm quite determined not to use any new patterns, so that just to show people, just to look at what you've got yourselves before you start going out and buying things. So let's start with the basques. So to start with, they only had 3.5 hours to make a basque, and this was a basque that had cups in it. There were 13 pieces in this basque, and the difference between a basque and a corset is that I think a corset would generally have something at the back to tie it and fit it, whereas a basque needs to fit the person that it's been made for. So there's no adjustments at the back. So there's just a hook and eye, and I think that caused quite a lot of problems for the contestants. So yeah, 3.5 hours to make a 13-piece garment with boning, bias binding, and a row of hook and eyes at the back. That was really tough. I'm a bit puzzled as to why they did that as your technical round and not the fit round, really, because it was crucial that a basque fits. And as I talk a bit later, you'll find that not all of them did. So with the technical round, they all work from exactly the same pattern. I haven't been able to find the exact same pattern, and I suspect once again that they've used a pattern that's been drafted particularly for the show. Kate at the Fold Line generally does a video the day afterwards, and she's found a couple that could potentially have been used, or you could use instead of. Simplicity, amazing fit, and that's Simplicity 1183. I will insert a picture of it for you, and that's generally the same in that it's got the cups, seems to fasten at the front. I don't know if it's got front and back fastenings with that one, but it's more of a corset in that it's got the ties as opposed to a basque. This is what the contestants were sewing. I've had a quick look at what I've got amongst my patterns, and one of the old Great British Sewing Bee books has a corset in it, and it's this one, the Fashion with Fabric. And inside here we've got, and this was actually a challenge in one of the old Sewing Bee series. So there you've got a corset there. As I said, there's no cups on this one. So this is just and it does tie at the back. So, and I found a free one, or a couple of free ones. Ralph Pink, they have a series of free corset patterns, but they are only size 8 and there are no instructions, so good luck having a go with those. But I found a couple of reasonably priced. In fact, the Simplicity Amazing Fit one is not particularly expensive, but if I were to replicate that particular challenge, I would use the one that I've got existing in my Sewing Bee book. I'm not going to make a corset. The whole point of me doing these challenges for myself is for something that I'm going to either wear myself or make for somebody that I know is going to wear, and that's not something I'd wear. They are the most uncomfortable things that ever. I just don't see why I would wear one. Well, it's not 1950s, is it? I think if you're going to if you wanting a full 1950s outfit and you wanted that kind of figure, then yes, maybe I might do, but no, I've not got the fabric for it anyway, so we'll give that one a miss. So on to what the contestants made. Quite a lot of them struggled with it, and I can't remember, I think it was Nicole that pointed out the actual fastening of the hooks and eyes was the instructions for it was 3 pages long, and it really did flummox quite a few people. I don't know if that's a Yorkshire word or not, but yeah, it's I don't think it is. So yeah, I think that I really had people scratching their heads on how to insert those hooks and eyes. So for the different sorts of fabrics that were used, there was jacquards used, and satins. I think from reading about it a bit more, there's a fabric called cortil, which is woven. I think it's got viscose in it, and I'll put a link to that as well. That's all in my blog post, and I think that's probably one of the quite a decent fabric to use. So Ali decided to use stripes in a wisdom, and took quite a long time to match the stripes, and I think that was possibly it took quite a lot of her 3.5 hours just trying to get all those stripes looking right. So hers was, she managed to finish it, but I think with about 30 minutes to go, she still hadn't done her casings for the boning, or even done the hook and eyes at the back, and then there was bias binding. So yes, she finished it, but obviously they picked up that the sewing wasn't her greatest effort, purely probably because she had to rush. And then we had Liz, who did her black satin, black again, with looked nice with a cobalt blue binding. Now Liz did say, and she was the only one to say, that she had done undergarments before. I got the impression to start off with that it was mostly bras and pants and that, but on talking to her and within the interview, she did say that she doesn't have much of a waist, and she does like to make corsets for that very reason. So she was obviously in a comfort zone with the corsets. So I did kind of think maybe that was a kiss of death. Once you say you can do something, it's that you get yourself into deep water. But she did finish hers, and I think the only thing that they picked up on the judges was that she had a bit of wonky top stitching. There's a lot of top stitching in those basques. I mean, it was really quite a difficult task, because all the channels are top stitched, and then you've got your bias binding as well. I think there were six channels of boning in that. Two of the ladies, Nicole and Claire, chose the same fabric. Now, the way it was edited, not necessarily how it is, but the way it was edited, Nicole chose this, is it a jacquard? She chose it first, and then Claire sort of said, do you mind if I use the same one? And Nicole's face said it all, really. I don't think she was too chuffed about it, but they went ahead. That was interesting, and it did cause me to reflect as to whether maybe on some of the challenges, if they were all forced to use exactly the same fabric, then you've nowhere to hide within the fabric choice, if you know what I mean. Because they both did a really, really good job of theirs. And I think Nicole's looked neater across the hooks and eyes, but they reckoned that Claire's fitted better, and so she did actually get the first position in that one. Nicole coming second, and then we had Peter, who missed an entire back panel off the back of his. Everything that it did sew, he sewed really well, but he missed an entire back panel, and Patrick did say, yeah, biggest clanger in the history of sewing bee. So obviously he got 8th position on that one. and a bit curious as to how he managed that. He must have had extra fabric on his table, and it wasn't until he came to put it on the dummy right at the end that he realised his mistake. Then Matt managed to sew all his seams at 1/2 centimetre instead of 1 centimetre. Was it the other way around? No, it was. He sewed his seams smaller than what he should have done. And I think there was 1 centimetre seam allowances. So I don't know at what point he thought these are really narrow, because it would be quite tricky to do them at 1/2 centimetre. So obviously his was too big when it came to fitting the model. So I just, that was a strange one. So the others, they seemed to do okay. I think it was just wonky top stitching that they got picked up on and things like that. So Therese really struggled with this. She mentioned that she'd had a lot of firsts in this. I don't think she'd ever done boning, nor have I. Bias binding, I've done bias binding. She said there were quite a few firsts for her, and you saw an awful lot of action with a seam ripper on with her, and she cut herself actually. I don't know if it was with scissors or a seam ripper, but for the rest of the episode, she had a sticking plaster on her hand from cutting herself. So she really struggled, and hers wasn't actually finished. I think she still had the bias binding to do, and I don't know if there was something else that she'd not finished. But yeah, I think that really caused her some trouble, did that particular one. So yeah, I think most of them, the big things that they got picked up on was either top stitching or not being able to put those hooks and eyes in properly. So as I'm talking, I'll insert a couple of pictures of what the fabrics that I thought they might have been using. So onto the transformation challenge, 90 minutes to transform nighties and PJs, and the brief was for them to make them look, to make a women's daywear and not to look like the original garments. So obviously you don't want just a nightie top cut off and made into a top, or pyjama top bottoms made into shorts. So I think they all really struggled with these. If I'm being 100% honest, I think most of them, with the exception of 2 or 3, they were a mess really, to be quite frank. So Mark made a midi skirt out of his, and kind of used the fabric as the garments as fabric, and cut it into a midi skirt, where he used he inserted godets. And I think he had buttons up the front and a waistband, and for me that looked most unlike the original garments than any of them. He only came 5th with that, and I would have said that out of all of them was the most wearable. I know they're looking for something a bit out there and a bit avant-garde, and I think Peter delivered that, and I think he redeemed himself from his nightmare first round, in that he did big. He did a top and the big statement sleeves, and then used a nightgown to go under the bust of the top, and then I think he put extra collars under the collar, so you could see the original pyjama top, I suppose, but then he used a nightgown to make these big statement sleeves. So that was quite Vivienne Westwood-esque, I suppose, but. The quality, I don't know what the quality of the stitching was, because you don't particularly get to see much of a close-up on that one. The ones that the judges went mad for was Teresa's, where she made dungarees, and it did look like she made a good job. She'd taken part of the pyjama top with the pocket in and made the bib, but only really attached it to the trouser bottoms. So for me to hit that brief, it's just, you could see that was pyjamas, and that could have been choice of fabric. But she did then sort of, on top of all that, make a little top to go underneath it. Now, I just felt that you were supposed to incorporate them both garments, the nightie and the pyjamas. What she did was make two. Obviously, there's a lot of work in this, but made 2 separate garments. So the top was a nightie, the bottoms was the PJs, and I think she might have used a bit of bias binding around the sleeves, just to incorporate them to make it look more like an outfit, so perhaps she redeemed herself that way. The others, Liz made a maxi dress, and I think essentially she cut her pyjamas into strips so that the pyjama top, bottoms and top was added together to make a long skirt, and the judges sort of picked out that perhaps it was a bit of an afterthought putting a frill in down the front from the nightie, because that's the only bit that she incorporated. Therese turned the pyjama top back to front and made a top. She did something fancy with the sleeves, but the sleeves looked quite interesting, and you didn't get to see much about it. And then I think she incorporated a bit of the nightgown at the front to make a lace sort of V, not particularly very different to a PJ top, except that it's back to front. And Claire, I think she made a dress, and you kept seeing it in the background, and the sewing on it wasn't great, but I mean it was different from what it started off with. And then Ali made, she tried a bit of draping over the dummy, so she used there was some piping on hers, on the pyjamas, and she sort of made a crossover front and then added a bit of a skirt and made it like a skater style dress out of hers. Again, you didn't see a great deal of it, so it was quite difficult to sort of make a judgment on it really, but when you looked at them from a distance, quite a few of them just looked like pyjamas that had been upcycled really. So I don't think I'll be doing that anytime soon. So yeah, so the round 3 is the fit round, and it's always a fit round, and they did a 2-piece sleepwear, which I think it must have been, they were all women's. A lot of them looked the same in style, in that it was like a little camis top and shorts. Quite a lot of them went down that route, apart from Mark, who went full on Victoriana and made himself sort of a Winceyette 2-piece with knickerbockers. That was different, and I think there was quite a lot of work in that actually. They focused a lot on the fact that he used Winceyette, which is obviously quite an old-fashioned fabric, and some did pick up on the fact that why would you use Winceyette on something that's sleeveless, but I think he was just demonstrating his skills. I mean, it's a cotton, it's Winceyette, so it's probably not the most difficult of things to handle. But his top did have quite a lot of detail in it. He had pleats here, which Esme picked up that they weren't exactly even. And then he had a channel around the waist that had an insert of ties. And I think it had a peplum bottom on it as well. Oh, and buttons down the front. There was quite a lot of work in Mark's. And then both Therese and Peter, I think, went for a cotton lawn. Therese used French seams in hers, and I think she used I'm fairly sure she used the Tilly and the Buttons Fifi pattern. Therese used a cotton lawn, which, if you compare it to quite a lot of the other contestants who were using silk, and some of them cutting it on the bias, a much easier to handle fabric. So she did incorporate French seams within hers. I forgot to mention at the beginning, they all had to incorporate some sort of lace within their garments. So some used more than others. I think Ali's was just on the bottom of her shorts, and Therese's was on the sort of neckline and the bottom of her shorts. Claire's was really nice. She did a lace insert inside her cami top, and that looked really pretty, and it would take quite a lot of skill to get that right. And she used, I think she was cutting on the bias as well, and she used French seams. So Claire did make herself quite a lot of work. Nat was interested as well in the discussions that people have afterwards, in why would you why would you cause yourself so much work? Why would you cut on the bias and French seams? And why you know, Therese seems to have got the idea that she's keeping it quite simple. And I think that was one of the remarks that Peter used for his second for this round, is that he said, I'm going to keep it simple. After my disaster in the first round, I'm just going to keep it simple and do it well. And I think that seems to be Therese's USP, and she keeps it simple and does what she does really, really well. That might come back to bite her on some of the later episodes, in that they are going to look for some sort of design skill and you know, some sort of I'm not saying she's not skilled, she is skilled, but just sort of a bit more out there, I think. So Nicole decided to, I think she must have used a 1970s pattern. It was a sort of very baby doll in its style. Kate from the Fold line again found a pattern very similar to it, except she put flutter sleeves on hers, and she had shorts as well. I think she did her shorts in next to no time at all. She spent quite a lot of time on the top, which was like a lilac-y grey silk overlaid with a darker sort of purple lace, and her face when she finished it, it just said everything. I just don't think she was keen on it at all. Patrick picked up that it was too big on they sort of picked it up off the sleeve like this, and he just said it is too big. And remember that this is the fit round, and it wasn't finished. The bottom of the hem wasn't finished either. So I think apart from that, everybody did finish. Ali combined a cream silk with leopard print in the panels. I'm not sure if a leopard print was slightly heavier in weight than a silk, because Esme picked out that it didn't seem to sit right on the sides, but she did finish hers. But sadly, she in trimming down, I don't know if she was trimming the seams or what, she managed to put a snip right where it was visible. Now, I don't think that the judges would have downgraded her so much about that, but I think it was more that the stitching didn't seem as good as what she'd done in the past. But she finished and it fit, and I couldn't believe the result, really. So Matt made the Vogue 8888, which you saw on the show, and he did it in a very, very light blue silk, and he used the lace to go over the bust area, and it just, I don't know if the lace was too heavy or what. Patrick did pick out that it did seem a bit big. So Liz was the only one to use a stretch fabric, so she used a viscose jersey, black again, and just a little camisole and short set. I think she used a stretch lace, so stretching to stretch is probably not that easy. And it looked nice and it looked comfortable, but I'm just wondering, and maybe the stretch was the one that sort of tested her skills, perhaps. I'm getting fed up of seeing black, to be honest. I think they must say something to them at the beginning of the series and just say, well, you know, draping's your thing, and black and gothy thing's your thing, and 1940s vintage is your thing. Not everybody's just singular like that. It's just, I'd like to see other things coming from them, really. I think that's my biggest criticism, really. You don't have to have a thing. Why do you have to have a thing? Anyway, that's just my little beef about it. And we go back to who got the garment of the week, which was Therese with her sleep set. Now, I appreciate that it was well made, and that there were French seams in it, but she chose one of the easiest fabrics to make them with. There were 5 hours for this challenge, and I don't know that really, compared to how long they had to make the basque, which was only 3.5 hours, why that the basque wasn't the fit challenge and the sleep set wasn't the technical challenge, really, because there's so much more work in the basques, so much more work, and they have got to fit, and you know, some of them didn't get them to fit. So I think those two challenges should have been flipped around, really, and I also think that Garment of the Week really should have come from that round for either Nicole or Claire, who more or less perfectly did that and executed that in 3.5 hours. So, and obviously I've not seen the finished garments, so I don't know where they were coming from on that being a Garment of the Week. I'm really not dissing what Therese did at all, because she does beautiful work. But I was just questioning where the Garment of the Week came from when there were so many other more technically difficult things to have been shown on the show. And Therese's was, I think Therese's and Liz's were probably in contention for. They don't actually judge first, second to eighth on the last round. They just announce Garment of the Week. And Garment of the Week isn't always necessarily from that particular round. So yeah, so Ali got voted out this time. It's not voted, is it? But she got sent at home this time, and I was absolutely gobsmacked, because, you know, compared to somebody who made the biggest clanger of the sewing bee history, I think she came fifth or sixth on the 2 rounds there, and again, like I say, she wasn't judged on the second one, but her third one, her garment was finished. Her sleepwear garment was finished. Might not been the best stitching that she's ever done, and it fit as well. So I was a bit perplexed as to why she went, but she did Yorkshire proud, and I'm proud that I knew her, and she did a great job while she was there, and she seems to have made some really great friends amongst all the bees. So well done, Alex. So on to my little challenges. So last week I challenged myself to make a rugby shirt, in my wisdom that I would draft my own rugby shirt because I'm not paying 15 quid for a Vogue one and blah de blah de blah. I think I might have fathomed the placket thing. Again, just to reiterate, I'm using what I've got. So I just started with the plackets, really, and ones that I've done before. So last week I showed that I've done a hidden button placket, and this is the sort of placket that you get. Now, because this is just a 12, so the stitching's not the greatest. So you've got this is where your button holes would be, and your buttons would go on there. But I don't know if you remember, but the placket, this wasn't visible at all. It was like the fabric would be like this. It was more like this. So I think I've fathomed how to do that. And again, this isn't cotton twill. This is just a bit of old duvet, same old duvet that I use for the shorts, actually. I think I've fathomed out how it's done. So I just need to then put that onto a shirt, and I'm going to do a separate video on that, on the process, I think, because it will take far too long on the end of this. So look out for that. It's not done. I've just figured out how to make the placket. Then I'm going to have to figure out how to draft a collar. I've never drafted a collar, so I'll probably just looking at other patterns to do that. So I will put that in a separate video for you. And on to this week's challenge. So yes, I thought I'd make the little sleep set out of the Sustainable Style book, because coincidentally they do have this little sleep set here. And I set myself the challenge to make it out of fabric, and obviously I've got this pattern. There's a little 2-piece cami set in. This is the From Stitch to Style book. So just to sort of, that could be made into a sleepwear set really easily, and you've got your lace on there. But yeah, just to sort of encourage people, you don't have to go out and buy new patterns every time. You just have a look and see what you've got. So they've got I decided to use that sleepwear set, and I made myself a little chemist set. So we've got shorts. So you've got the shorts, and these have got you can't really see, but it's got a cuff at the bottom. They're described in the book as a vintage tap pants. So I wonder if they might have based them on what Claire made, perhaps. And then just the little cami top there. So the cami top it's got a lining. It's lined there, and all French seams. So you've got all French seams throughout, and rouleau straps, and the shorts are all French seamed as well. You're probably not going to be able to appreciate this, but I'll turn it inside out so just to show them. So you've got all French seams in there as well. And I'm going to I think I'll probably do a full review of the pattern on a separate video as well, because it's going to take too long. But yeah, they took me about 5 hours, so it's probably about right. One thing I will say about the fit challenge is they are allowed to practice first. So this is my first time making this, and it took me 5 hours. So I think 5 hours is probably about reasonable for a normal person to make something without having all the pressure. So yeah. So that's it. That's my review for the episode 5 of the Great British Sewing Bee. Down to 7 contestants next week. No Ali. Am I going to watch? Of course I am. It's the only sewing show on TV, so of course I'm going to watch. So let me know down below if you've managed to find a rugby shirt pattern that's not going to cost an arm and a leg. Let me know, or if you're fancying making some sleepwear, if you want me to show you some techniques in there. It is actually a good pattern to try new techniques on. My feelings about sleepwear is nobody's going to see it, so you can almost use it as a practice piece, because you're only going to go to bed in it anyway. So if you've never done French seams before, or bias binding, or rouleau loops, or there's stitching the ditch, there's lots of techniques in that little sleep set there that you could, if you've never done it before, you could give it a go, and you're only going to get into bed with it. And you could, I mean, the fabric that I've used cost me next to nothing. I think it cost me £1 off the market or something. But you could use an old duvet cover, you could use anything, and just practice your skills on something that you're going to go to bed in. That would be my top tip of the day. So, right, I'm going to leave it here. I've waffled on long enough, and I apologise if I've bored you all to death. And let me know below if you've tried sleepwear or laundry. I've actually sewed bras before, and I was expecting that. Some of the old books, Sewing Bee books, have got quite a few laundry pieces in there. So yeah, let me know below, and if you've tried it, or you're wanting to try it, or if you want me to show you any techniques, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye.